Okay, we're going to, I'm doing an experiment here with trying to do what they asked me to do as far as zooming things. All right, so yesterday we started off and we got in partway through the classical situation, and it's probably going to work out really well since, so today what we're going to be talking about with you guys' cooperation, I hope, is we're going to be talking about the Roman part of the classical. So you've got that little form, and for those of you that are scoring at home, I'll put that up as well on. I'll put that up on the Canvas site. If I think I did already, but if I didn't, I'll put it there. There's a chart that says foundations that has some of the, going to summarize some of these civilizations that we're talking about. So we're talking about the Romans. And when we talk about the Romans, almost entirely, we are talking about the period of time known as the Republic. All right, you guys, I'm sure, remember your world history, and you remember that the Roman Republic really was the part of Roman history that lasted from about 505 BC to about 31 BC, when the wheels came off the wagon and Augustus took over, and that's kind of the beginning of the empire. All right. And so what I want to do today is talk about some of the things that, I'm sorry. Okay, well, go fix it. The first thing that I need to let you know is that of all the government systems of the ancient world, and even later on, this was the one that was kind of admired, and I would say even imitated by our founding fathers. When they set up the government, they set it up because they admired greatly the Republic. They saw that as really being the ideal. They were a little afraid of democracy that we talked about yesterday, but they really admired the Republic and what a republic would stand for. All right. You can see this in a couple of ways. And I guess the first thing I want to do is I want to give you, again, probably have done this before, the definition of a republic. What exactly constitutes a republic? And there's two things. All right. And to use the phrase we use all the time in here, write it down. There's two things that make a republic a republic. One is that in a republic, you have some form of representation. The people in charge represent somebody else. They don't rule on behalf of themselves. They represent somebody else. The other part of it is that in a republic, you have what we sometimes today call the rule of law, and you have some sort of higher law that exists. Usually it's written down. Sometimes it's not so much written down as it's just kind of understood. All right. So that's really, I think, one of the things that you want to kind of salt away. And this is knowledge you have to know, because this is one of the things that we got from the Roman system, the idea of a republic. Off-quoted little statement, end of the Constitutional Convention. They're leaving, these guys are leaving this meeting. Crowds out there. There wasn't any news or any of that back then, but there's a crowd out there waiting. Some woman shouts at Franklin because he's from Philadelphia and that's where the meetings were held. what kind of government did you give us? And Franklin's reply was, a republic, madam, if you can keep it. I think you saw that quoted on the little video that we watched earlier in the year. So this is the starting point, is that this is the kind of government that we actually are designed to have. All right. So the second thing that, excuse me, I know I zoomed the meeting in, recorded the meeting, and now we end up with me dropping stuff and looking all clumsy. Fortunately, nobody will see this except for maybe 2 people. So, all right. The republic situation is number 1. You can tell, okay, by what we thought about these things, by even just looking at our government system. Think about the terminology that we borrowed. We obviously borrowed the idea of the republic from them. But even within the republic, think about this. We have 2 houses in Congress. What is the house? What is one of the houses called? No, not one of the parties, one of the houses. We have the House of Representatives and we have the, oh my goodness, we're in big trouble. The Senate. That's a term that we borrowed directly from the Romans. If the president representing the people sees a law passed by the Congress that he doesn't like, what can he do? Veto. He can veto it. Again, that's a word and a concept directly from the Roman Republic. In the Roman Republic, if the Senate passed a bill that the representatives of the people didn't like, they could veto that bill. Veto simply means I forbid. All right? I forbid. And so they had that built into the system. In the Roman Republic, they had representation. They had representing the sort of the aristocrats, they had something called the Senate. It was a little bit nobler, a little bit more dignified, and that's really the idea of the United States Senate. All right. They also had what they called assemblies. The assemblies represented the regular people, the plebeians. You might remember that term. That term ring a bell? All right, they represented the regular people. Now, in terms of a higher law, what the Romans had was they had this law of the 12 tables. All right. Now, the key to this, and maybe the biggest idea of the Roman Republic, and when it fell, this is why it fell, is that there was a point in time in which the rulers did not follow the law. And the idea of a republic is, it's not just you and I that are accountable to the law. It's the rulers that are accountable to the law. Everybody has to follow the law. So if Donald Trump is president, he is supposed to follow the law. If Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House, she is supposed to follow the law. There was a little tempest in a teapot last week. I don't know how many of you saw this. But Mrs. Pelosi, and by the way, this is not aimed specifically at her because I think people from both parties pull the same thing. Okay, so Mrs. Pelosi's been here. By the way, if you're watching on TV, my foot is on the box. Mrs. Pelosi's been on, kind of haranguing the people about, oh, you got to follow the laws and you got to keep your masks on and we should all have to keep masks on. And so Mrs. Pelosi, who's on TV a lot and probably thought that she was entitled, found a hair salon that was closed. Nobody else could go in there. And she decided to make an appointment with somehow to get into there. And lo and behold, not only is she in a place that is closed to all the regular people, but she's not wearing a mask. And then 3 hours later, she was back on TV with a new hairdo, telling everybody they had to wear a mask and follow the law. Okay. That's the kind of thing that a republic kind of stops on. If you're in a monarchy, everybody understands the king is a king, he can do what he wants. But in a republic, the government is supposed to be accountable. All All right? Donald Trump's supposed to be accountable. Nancy Pelosi is supposed to be accountable. President Obama was supposed to be accountable. It doesn't matter. The law is for everyone. And when the sense comes that that's not happening, then people get very irritated. Now, it is kind of ironic that depending on, you know, which ox is being gored, that, you know, people will get upset. So if Trump is president and he does something, then all of a sudden the Democrats are all worried about the rule of law. When Obama was president, he would do something, then the Republicans all worried about the rule of law. My point is we should all be worried about the rule of law all the time, whoever is in charge, because that's the key to having this system hold together. All right? So there's other terminology. If you go to law school at some point in time, as I did for a semester, you will find out that basically half of our legal system is based on Latin. You get called to court, you get a subpoena, you get arrested, and they are holding you in jail down there, and you want to get out. Your lawyer goes down and files a writ of habeas corpus. We call the whole thing jurisprudence. All of these things are Latin terms. We've borrowed them from the Roman system, of law. One other thing about law, a little bit scatterbrained here today, I apologize for that. But sometimes we tend to think that law is something that limits us. All right? That law is a burden, and oh my goodness, I have to follow the law, and oh, I wish there wasn't a law. But just look and see what happens in situations where there isn't any law. Okay? Put on the box again. Last summer, in kind of the heat of some of the protests in Seattle, basically the Antifa people, and I suppose some of the Black Lives Matter people too, for that matter, they basically took over a section of Seattle and said, we're no longer a part of Seattle. We're no longer under the law of the United States. We're just a law unto ourselves. They did. And the mayor of Seattle, in her infinite wisdom, said, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. We're on your side. No, she thought it was great. Well, she thought it was great for a while. And yet, within about 3 weeks, the whole thing just turned to chaos and people were getting killed. Okay. No law does not cause freedom necessarily. Think about it this way. Let's say that we decided, in the infinite wisdom of our school, well, we're not really going to have a dress code. We'll just get you if, think it's out of line. And so one day, Max comes to school in, ratty torn jeans, and nobody says anything. And then the next day, he comes in ratty torn jeans, and Mrs. Crable catches him at the door and says, no, Max, that's out of line. You just violated the dress code, and I'll be a $50 fine because I'm really irritated at you right now. And then the next day, Hunter comes in with ratty torn jeans. Confused? Do you feel freer in that situation? Or do you just feel confused? Do you feel like I don't even know what I can do? Okay, what the law does, and the reason that they posted the 12 tables in the Roman Forum, was so that everybody knew where the boundaries were, and then within those boundaries, now you have freedom. Now you have freedom. And you know what you can do, and you know what you can't do, and you know what's good, and you know what's considered to be evil. And so, in a sense, the law has the ability to make us at least be able to live lives of some sort of freedom and understanding. We borrowed that from the Roman system. As I said yesterday, the Greeks were good at philosophy. The Greeks were good at explaining things. The Greeks, wrote all the, Aristotle's writing books about politics. He's writing books about ethics. and we've got all these things written out. But the Greeks never, you think about it, the Greeks never could get together until they got a dictator, Alexander the Great. And then to be honest with you, that didn't last very long anyway, because that was based on one person. The Roman system lasts for really hundreds of years. And maybe you remember why it broke down, and maybe you don't. That's fine. It doesn't really matter for this discussion. But eventually what happened is that it became lawless. People began to abuse the law. All right, questions on that? No questions. I've explained it greatly, or I explained it terribly. I'm afraid today is probably the second one. Okay? All right, so for Monday, when you come in here Monday, what I would like you to be ready to talk about at least a little bit is the reading in your book on page 44, I think. Let me make sure I got it right for the people at home. 44 and 45. These are excerpts of what we call the Magna Carta. And we're going to see how even the medieval system, the lords and ladies and all that stuff, how that played into our system. So I'm going to go ahead and Colton and McKenna, I was going to say sayonara for a minute and talk to you on Monday.